At 6:02, we have 5 of our council in place, so we've got a lot to cover tonight, so I think we'll go ahead and I'll call the long meeting order at 6:02. The first item is to discuss the agenda items. That'd be 1WS. And I want to make one announcement right now. I'm not normally this cool, but I just had my eyes dilated. It's a struggle right now. Discuss the agenda. We'll start out with any of the agenda items. Let's see. The consent item, somebody read them for
me. The consent agenda is the minutes for the July 7th, 2015 regular city council meeting. I believe, Mary, this is the one you just passed out with some corrections to typos.
There are two corrections on that, and when we make the motion, it's as corrected. Mary, you want to tell them what the two were?
Yes, sir. On the Citizens Public Forum, it showed I misspelled Mr. Jameson's last name. I left off the O in the end. That's been corrected. And then on item number 11, there was a typo in the first sentence, and it's been corrected as well.
Okay. Everybody okay with the agenda? I mean, with the minute?
The next item on the consent agenda is a resolution of the City Council awarding the Keep Duncanville Beautiful August 2015 Property of the Month Award to Inwood National Bank.
Y'all been in the bank? It is amazing. Y'all should go inside the bank. It is very nice. We're recognized.
Actually, we're supposed to be recognizing for the landscaping on the outside, but I understand. I have not been in there, but I understand it's very nice. Okay.
The next item on the consent agenda is a resolution approving the terms and conditions of a professional engineering services agreement for the North Main Street Pump Station and SCADA improvements with Delta Tech Engineering. This is in the amount of $57,800, and what this will do is do the design work for additional pump and SCADA system improvements at the North Main station. This is budgeted within the Water Utilities Fund.
What is the acronym SCADA? What does that mean?
I think it's in there. Something controls and data acquisition.
SCADA?
Oh, shoot. Supervisory control and data acquisition.
Data acquisition
system.
Supervisory control, that's remote control, and data acquisition, it talks to you, tells you what's going on at the time.
It's what communicates between our water tanks and the city of Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Dennis?
Mike, I have a question on that. Can you explain what the SCADA improvements are going to be that's proposed at North Main?
Yes, sir.
I know it speaks of only one cabinet in there, and I'm just curious about what you're going to change.
Well, good question. North Main is the only tank that we have, or pump station that we have, that still uses wire connections to communicate, and those wires are, I don't know how many years old, but probably guessing at least 20 to 30 years old. They're not reliable. There's on occasion we don't send or receive signals from the remote transmitter unit. That's the RTU. That's another acronym in your report. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, as part of the improvements, we'll eliminate that wiring system and go with the direct line of sight antenna like we have at every other tank in the city, and therefore all the tanks, pump stations, and everything will be able to communicate with one another. Okay, so that's part of what we're going to do.
There's 2 tanks at North Main at elevated and ground storage, so relay down to the service center.
Yes, sir. And everything goes to the service center. Yes.
I was just curious about what. I know those old AT&T data lines are ancient. So.
And as I said, not very reliable.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, anything else?
On the regular agenda then, the next item is a resolution authorizing procurement and installation of the LED sign at Wheatland Road and Main Street. In your packet, you have the artist rendering that you've seen before. We also have additional rendering using a stone look instead of the brick. There's a copy for you there at your place. This is in an amount of $64,369, and that amount is within the budgeted amount.
64,000 for the stone?
No, for the whole sign.
Sign,
For the
everything.
sign and everything.
Well, that's certainly an improvement
It's an
over the red
electronic
brick
sign
as far as I'm
here.
concerned.
I like that a lot better.
And we pretty much do. And we would have do landscaping in front of it as well, and Bart did make the comment that the landscaping that's shown on there, I guess the vendor's not here, so we can say it's kind of a cheesy drawing of the landscaping, but we will actually do a much
I
better
thought
job
Bart
of the
did
landscaping.
that.
Just make stamps. I can assure you our staff will do a much better job.
Okay, anything on that? Anything you talk about?
The next item is a resolution appointing the City of Duncanville representative to the Eon Reality Entrepreneur School Advisory Committee. As you know, part of the agreement with Eon was to set up then, or our contract also stipulated an advisory committee that would be composed of 3 people, the school house manager, 1 representative from the city, and 1 representative from Eon. So this item is for you to appoint a representative as the City of Duncanville representative on that advisory committee. I believe we had a couple of nominations, so.
Who were they?
I think Cliff Boyd and Dr. Stephen Jones were nominations that we received.
Are we going to invite them in to interview them? I think we should. I'd like to know what their position is.
Position on what?
Eon.
I think they've both been involved, pretty much. And Cliff was involved from the beginning on it.
Who was involved from the beginning?
Well, Dr. Jones recommended it, but for all the negotiations, Dr. Jones wasn't part of it, Cliff was.
I understand, but also during some of those negotiations, there was more at risk, if you will, for the city, and we changed. And so I would like to know where that is with him now.
Assistant city
He's back
manager,
over here.
where are you? There you are.
Right here, sir.
You did most of all of the negotiations, the final negotiations, right?
That's correct, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
What changed?
Fundamentally, the discussions that were had were the differences between doing a profit sharing program or simply investing in half the equipment for the return on rent, which would be a zero-sum game. And when those discussions were had, both the pros and cons were discussed, and ultimately the final outcome is what was decided with the contract that we have today. But all processes or options were on the table at one point.
I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
And that wasn't the question. What he personally, because his personal stance was to be more at risk and to have more invested in it then. And I would like to hear if he's changed.
Steve, would you want to kind of briefly explain what the purpose of that advisory committee is?
The ultimate purpose of the advisory committee, according to the contract, is to help guide the school in terms of representing all the parties that are present. Eon Reality is a company, City of Duncanville is a contributor, and then the way their schools is almost an independent entity. And so the ultimate objective is to have all the stakeholders at the table to make decisions about, I believe the number was over $20,000, and have a stake in that game or have a say in that game. And then they can call emergency meetings as necessary to make decisions about something that may come up involving the school or one of the partners.
And any kind of financial decisions that would involve the city, though, would of course come back to the city council.
Ab-
Because it would be a
absolutely.
change to the contract, so there would not be any
Absolutely.
kind of decisions made by that
I understand.
committee that would involve, that would commit the city to additional funding.
And I understand that. I would just like to know what his personal position is, whether this is something that he thinks that we should invest further in, or if it's something that should be managed.
Is that not something you can just call this house and ask?
In here, because there were some things that were said that are, like the grant that was given to Eon, that was the taxpayers' money. That was not some other entity. And it was sort of misleading. Some people thought that the grant came from, like, the Meadows Foundation or somewhere else. No, it was taxpayer money. And so it is your money. It is not an outside entity.
I fail to see how you coming in saying that will better inform the taxpayers than they already are.
Well, taxpayers don't really understand Eon very well at all, actually. But I just wanted, because he's supposed to be the representative, or whomever, of the city, I would like to know what his thoughts were, if he was willing to further invest, or if he thought that was enough, but it should be managed.
But the clearest of the council was that we should have only rental involvement in terms of property, and he cooperated and became a part of the committee.
Talking about the future, would you please stop with your stuff, Patrick? We are at the point where we're talking about Eon and where it goes forward, and if they need more money, or if they need to be,
Why would they need more money?
I don't know, Patrick.
Okay, I don't know either.
That could come up, and I would just like
We
to know.
have a 10-year contract with them. Is that right, 10 years?
That's correct.
Well, for that particular part of the puzzle, but there could be other things that come up.
Which would come to the council.
Would come to the council.
Yeah.
They would. What I'd
We
like to know
have
is
put this off, and we asked for you to turn in
manage it.
your names, and we got a couple, and I think it's time that we go ahead and move so they can get their board.
No, I agree.
So what would be the problem of interviewing him?
It would just put it off for a longer period of time, till we could get set up to interview the two. I think we know both of them, and they're both,
But we don't know their
both
positions.
interested in seeing the thing be a success, no doubt about it. But we've gone through long negotiations on this thing, signed a 10-year contract with them, and certainly anything that's brought up or changed is not gonna be their responsibility, it's gonna be the responsibility of this council.
So
And
why
they will
would-
certainly, they'll be certain, it's up to council, whatever y'all wanna do. Do you wanna go ahead with it tonight?
I would like to move forward.
I'm the one who recommended Dr. Jones, and I did it because without any knowledge of Cliff Boyd even being interested in it. And the reason why I did it was because I know that he is heavily involved in Eon still today. He has a vision for it. He is the STEM director at Mountain View, Science, Technology, I don't know what was it, engineering and math. He's the dean of the math and science department at Mountain View. And I know that they share a professor, I think Professor Cho, works at Mountain View, also works at Eon. And he still has a lot of control, I don't know, control or influence in Eon. So I just thought that he would be a perfect, and he lives in Duncanville, and he wants what's best for Duncanville. And he brought, I can't imagine, because it's highly technical. So I just thought he would make a great representative. When I called him, he was enthusiastic about representing the city. And so, as far as Cliff Boyd, I know that he's been on a very big promoter of Eon, and so that, from my point of view, having not had the background since it's my first time on the council, I don't have privilege of all the conversation that this council has had this past year concerning Eon. That was just my thinking of a good representative. And I didn't know that he should be here for an interview either. I didn't even ask him.
I didn't either. I didn't know what names were involved. I just thought we were, like other boards, we have interviews and we talk about it, and then we decide who's the best fit. Not some preconceived.
Well, what's the council's pleasure? Do you want to go ahead with the nomination vote tonight? Do you want to postpone it and interview these two? Or how do you want to handle it?
I don't see what I can learn any more in the interview than I already know about both men, so.
I think we've got two outstanding candidates, and we just are gonna have to make a decision on which one we want.
Which we
Go ahead and
ultimately
vote.
gonna have to do anyway. So, I'm sorry for the
And I'd like to go forward tonight, but if, the council wants to interview them, I think we know both of them.
I'm ready to bring a vote forward. All right, listen to them both through the whole thing.
Okay, what I'm hearing is,
tax grants to various applicants. And what we're doing here, just to kind of explain a little more, what we did this year was we put together a scoring matrix for the different applications to give some objective scoring to it. We picked or put the criteria together based on the economic impact, quality of life to the community, and then other factors. There's a 100-point scoring system. We arbitrarily essentially chose 50 points as the cutoff for what we would recommend. That is entirely up to the council to decide if you want to go with a lower score or a higher score, or if you want to use any other criteria. But what we did was, this was a way for us to be able to give you a basis for making a decision. We used the applications that were submitted. We tried to be very conservative, or give each applicant the benefit of the doubt to the maximum extent that we could if we didn't have the exact numbers within their data. So that to fund each organization, those numbers will be put into the budget as part of the hotel occupancy tax fund. And then when we come back in September with the budget approval, there will be a separate item for approval of the hotel occupancy tax budget, including approval of contracts for those entities and the amounts that you specify. Any that are over 50,000 would be a separate contract, and that will also be the public hearing.
thank you for giving us a basis for making those decisions on. I've never been able to really explain precisely, but I have something that I can point to and say, this is the rationale behind it. As a matter of fact, we should do that with all city contracts and city commitments. Have a scientific basis for this is why we did what we did.
Is it my understanding we've got 261,000, is that what's available?
That is what's available in the budget, correct?
That's not necessarily available, that's what is projected to be available based on our budget. That would, of course, depend on the hotel revenues being there that we project. And we, of course, have been very conservative in those estimates, so chances are that number will probably be a little larger.
Sorry, I made the finance director flinch a little bit when I said that was
well, and I can't remember, what was the total amount that made the cut?
I think us were over that amount, about 290,000, I think, and I think what we were recommending was around just less than 200,000.
Okay.
The other caveat there too is that there is a cap of 15% that can be dedicated to the grants that are for the promotion of arts. The applications were below that amount, so we were okay and we met that criteria. And we'll give a presentation on these, and there is one of those requests that has been withdrawn by the applicant, and that's the Visitor Center for the International Museum of Culture, their request.
I have a question. Didn't she, I got an email from her saying that she had amended.
You have before you, I put on each person's place a letter from Mary Fay that indicates information that she provided today.
So does that change the score?
It would change your score. The time that I did the matrix and did the scoring, this was not available. In fact, this was made available to me today.
Is it hard for you to score? I mean, is it not doable?
No, I mean, I could go in and score it fairly, within 10 minutes or 15 minutes of work.
We can have that number ready for you during the meeting.
You heard earlier, this was an arbitrary figure, the 50 points. First go around, I don't think any of our entities was used to using this matrix that's here, up or down. As the city manager said, it's up to you for this first go around. But at some point, we need to establish a benchmark score. But maybe this year's not the time to do it.
Well, all of these are traditionally come before the city council. And to have them, I mean, it's good to know where they're at and that be our benchmark. Because there's nothing new here, we're very familiar with all of them.
Okay, any further comments or statements?
The next item on the agenda then is the appointments of city council members as liaisons to the various boards and commissions. And again, you all received the complete board and commission list along with the current liaisons.
And let me explain that. This was something we started in January to have our city council as liaisons. We'd like to get all of the boards and commissions covered. But it may not be possible because of scheduling or whatever for a city councilman to say that they would like that particular position. But just because we've got members, and I think some of our current members would like to retain where they are, that doesn't mean that we can only have one member. For instance, Dr. Dotson and I share the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board. So if you have a burning desire, this is up to you to find places you want to be a liaison. So if you want to be on a particular board, we can have 2 or 3 if we need be. But I'd like to spread it out a little bit so that we can get a broad coverage of some of the boards that we don't have covered right now. So this is your choice, and we're not going to vote and say, well, this is going to be the council person on that board, whatever. It's just up to you where you can serve. Did I make myself clear? Okay.
So we need to discuss that out there. I mean, last year we just kind of passed around a piece of paper.
We can, what we did before was just pass around a piece of paper, and if you had a desire and your schedule would permit, you could sign up for that board. And we'd like to have you on a couple, minimum, so that, because there's not enough of us to go around with the board and commissions that we have. So,
I have a master list if you will pass it around.
yeah, why don't we just pass it around, and if you've got
Actually, this one has some.
a desire to be on a specific board, put it down.
And then the last item on the agenda tonight is to receive the presentation on the business plan for the Duncanville Fieldhouse from Pros Consulting. And this is their report. You've received a copy of it, and they'll make a presentation on that tonight on their recommendations and the results of that study.
Okay.
Question, are they here?
They will be here.
And that's gonna take a little time, folks, but this is, if you records, we can, ultimately, we can accept all of them or none of them, that's up to us. But, I think it's a pretty thorough report.
And our recommendation is that we, after you receive the report and the recommendation on it, take a look at it more in depth, come back to you with a plan. This might be a topic that you want to discuss at your October retreat. That will give us some time to really review it and put together something that we feel comfortable with, that we can make a recommendation to you and discuss further.
It was my recommendation, and we've talked about this, that when we do this at board retreat, we'll have time to sit down and really kind of talk through it and that'll give you time to really kind of go through it and pull out your talking points and so on and so forth.
Next, we have the fire department's quarterly update, and Assistant Chief James Root will give the report today since Chief Brody is down at
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for letting us make the presentation today. I want to start off talking about staffing. We have a new employee that started at the beginning of June. He's currently in paramedic school at UT Southwestern. So far, granted, we're just a little bit into it, but he's scoring quite excellent on his grades. We're quite happy with him. We do currently have 5 vacancies that are from people retiring that we weren't expecting, and then we've also had a few leave for other fire departments over the past year. We had 4 interviews today, and I'm still waiting on the final report from that interview panel as to recommendations on whether or not to proceed with those candidates in the hiring process. We also recently, last week, updated our requirements for hiring. It used to read firefighter or paramedic. The change would be we want them to be a paramedic or a firefighter and EMT. We did a lot of looking into it, and it's not going to change our pool of personnel that we can choose from, but it prevents us from having to send anyone from both EMT and paramedic school once we hire them, which allows us to go ahead and put them on the fire engines until there is a space for them to go into paramedic school. Some of the accomplishments over the last quarter. Some of these you'll recognize that we've already got them installed. I know the weather bug was installed during a localized regional radar system that we have access to through the COG, the Council of Governments. And that allows us, it's a short-range radar, which gives us a much better, broader picture of the storms as they come in, so we can make a little bit more educated decisions in the EOC. And then the weather bug, during these past storms in May, y'all are all familiar with when we had the severe thunderstorm warnings talking about high wind speeds and all this. Well, we were able to get Duncanville specific wind speeds of 58 roughly. Those are the maximum gusts, and that helps us because we have a specific criteria for setting off the community alert sirens of above 60 miles per hour. So we didn't have to go with the general Dallas County statement of we've seen some winds getting close to 60. We can go with specific what we're experiencing. That was a very nice tool to have for us. One of the other accomplishments, y'all are welcome to pass these around and look at them as I speak about them. These are access to, if the people want to fill it out, put it on the refrigerators. It has a magnetic strip on the back. Refrigerators, file cabinets, wherever they would like to. It gives us their medical history when we run on them for a medical emergency. Some people don't remember them. If they're in nursing homes, it takes a long time for the nursing staff to get the full paperwork to us. This gives it to us right there when we're on scene, so we have a better understanding of what situation we're in with the patient. We've already contacted Champions Cove and provided them to all 165 residents, and we're also working with the assisted living facilities, nursing homes, dialysis center, Duncanville Rehab. Those are those. Some of the work plan objectives that we've been working on, EMS surveys, that is a ongoing process. We are sending out, goodness, probably close to between 75 and 100 surveys each week. Those are to anyone we run on and have a medical emergency with in the city of Duncanville. You know, we're getting outstanding feedback. I believe it's a 96% satisfaction rating at the moment. And any ones that comes back with average or below, our EMS division chief makes personal contact either by phone or in person with those residents so we can find out what's going on, what do we need to improve on, and what we can do for them. The diesel exhaust system, something we've also been working on for several years. Equipment Services took the lead in that and installed these systems on all of our apparatus that have diesel motors. Basically, it scrubs the diesel exhaust to where when we're sitting in the apparatus bay, with that exhaust, it switches over to that exhaust system while you're idling in the bay, and you can feel that there's absolutely, basically nothing coming out of that system versus the regular exhaust filter. So it's been a really nice upgrade for us. The Opticom system, this was worked on with Signs and Signals and funded through an Assistance for Firefighters grant from 2013 that we applied for. It allows our fire apparatus and police cars to go through intersections that are light controlled. It tells that intersection we're coming, turns our light green, and everybody else's light red, so that we can get through much more safely.
Question, it's on your fire equipment, how many police cars do we have now? 15? So all of those that are really on the street?
All patrol vehicles and traffic cars.
That's great.
Who gets a priority? Police or fire?
Post office
It's
bar.
the first.
The rule of mass.
Rule of mass, there you go. EMS week was another big item we wanted to start working on this year. Chief Ryan, the health fair that he did during the, in conjunction with the fire truck pool, and that was in honor of EMS week. It took place up there at the senior center. Had a pretty good turnout, and during that turnout, some of the performance indicators, this is what we do day to day. We've had, since April 1st through June 30th, 1,749 incidents that we've been dispatched on. Now that includes Duncanville, our regional response with DeSoto and Cedar Hill, and automatic assistance with Dallas. The numbers below there are split up, and I'm going to get a little more detail on the building fires. It says 14, but we didn't have 14 fires in Duncanville. We had 7 in Duncanville. Fire-related calls for service, that's going to be grass fires, car fires, dumpster fires. Also there, it's not a real fire, that's a false alarm. Anytime we get disregarded while en route to the call. Smoke investigations, assisting people if they've can't get themselves up, or unlocking a vehicle, several different types. It's basically anything that's not fire or EMS related is covered. And then the EMS calls for service, as you can see, that's our largest number by far. It's about 70, I believe 72%, if I remember correctly. And that's everything EMS. Motor vehicle collisions where someone's been hurt, medical calls, heart attacks, breathing difficulties, CPRs, anything you can think of that's related to the ambulance. And signed up to get a little more information during that EMS week. They talked fire prevention, and were very specific about wanting to get that information. It was kind of a good turnout for that as well. And then inspections, that's business inspections specifically by our fire prevention division. The guys at the stations, they go out and do safety surveys of businesses just to get an idea, okay, we want to make sure things are safe. And then the inspections department, they go out and get a lot more specific, a lot more in-depth of all the fire codes, and as well as life safety codes. I know I went through kind of quick. Or you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, how's the gentleman doing that is responsible for compliance?
Compliance to the...
Compliance with...
Brian, he's doing great. He's come on real well. He's very, very good about... He looks through, at this point, he's able to look through every single transported call and review the run sheets and look for compliance. We're also in the process of doing a Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services compliance survey. That's done by a third party. And we've sent the data off to them, hopefully get the report back within the next couple of weeks. And that's just a general overall, or they take 50 random calls out of 6 months and say, okay, how are y'all doing in general? Do you need better narratives? Is this being missed? And getting your data points both here and here. They are very thorough and want to make sure we stay in compliance.
All right, I asked because I was very impressed with the seriousness of the way in which you all explained what his responsibilities were going to be. So, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, have the pleasure this evening to introduce a consultant who has worked for us for a number of years, Mr. Trey Shanks. He's an associate with the consulting firm Freese & Nichols And he's over their stormwater management program. He's a certified floodplain manager. And he's going to talk to you today about the City of Duncanville's small and or stormwater quality program update. So with that, I'll turn it over to Trey.
Thank you, appreciate it.
By the way, Dennis, the priority is ambulance first, and then fire.
I know it's
They're not
post
as
office
nimble.
department.
Pardon?
I know it's post office department. Federal government. No, there is federal law.
Okay, we'd like to just give you guys a quick update on the good things y'all been doing, really since 2007, for your, regarding your stormwater management, specifically related to water quality from stormwater. You know, we've all had in the Metroplex over the spring a lot of rain. With that, there's a lot of pollutant runoff potential. A lot of good things that are being done here in the city to minimize the pollutant loading into the creeks and the like. Stormwater management overall is obviously flood protection, which has been a big concern in the spring. Stream bank protection with making sure the creeks aren't eroding and taking houses in with and the like, but also water quality. There's a whole bunch of different ways and activities and things to do to take care of stormwater management. Anything from the compliance aspect to policies of how development occurs or how systems function in the city. Maintenance of your system itself, capital improvements, and funding approaches for that. You have a stormwater utility and fee in place that helps with that. I want to focus on the compliance part for that right now. So, Duncanville is what's called a small MS4, the large MS4, and MS4 being a municipal separate storm sewer system. Large MS4s were cities that were 100,000 population or more back in 1990. So there were 7 entities back then, Fort Worth, Dallas, Arlington, and the like. And now you see the colored areas on the map. All of the cities within those colored areas are required to have the same type of program that Duncanville has. This MS4 stormwater management program. So the rules and requirements came out originally in 1999 on the federal level, and then in 2007 on a state level when it got specific to Texas. Duncanville's plan was finalized in the first year the program was implemented, 2012, and the next permit cycle, which is a 5-year permit, in 2013. As of right now, you're in the second year of this 5-year permit, and what is required is to have an annual report to TCEQ, the Texas Commission on year. So there's 7 different overall requirements. I'll just touch on these briefly. Public education outreach is a big component of the stormwater management programs. Let everybody know what they can do to minimize stormwater pollution, whether it's not fertilizing right before a rainstorm or dumping into a creek and the like. So this is Mother Nature, who has gone around in Duncanville for several years, and I believe, have you done some speaking around as well to the community related to water quality? Right?
That's on our agenda. We have lists of that.
Excellent, excellent. So the website, you have information on your website and the like. So there's a lot of different ways that you're reaching out to the community on that. The second one is called illicit discharge detection and elimination. That's a long-winded way of saying don't put anything in the storm system but stormwater. What that really gets to is you've got an ordinance in place that says you can't do it. If you do, it's a fine. And from a city standpoint, you need to know what your storm system really is so you can inspect it and enforce and make sure things are cleaned up if there is any discharge. Construction site runoff controls. You see, when you see a construction site and you see the silt fence around it, that's part of the requirements on a state level and now on a city level to enforce. You've got ordinances in place for that, and you have city staff that conduct inspections of your construction sites. On a post-construction standpoint, what that basically gets to is how development occurs in a way that's protective of water quality after development is done. Adopted the ISWIM manual, the Integrated Stormwater Management Manual, that addresses stream bank protection, flood protection, and water quality protection. So you're really one of the leaders in the Metroplex for having a really cohesive, comprehensive program to take care of that. So hats off to you for that. Pollution prevention and good housekeeping. This is basically saying take care of your city facilities, the maintenance yards and the like, the same way that the rest of the community, you're trying to educate them to take care of their facilities as well. So So just good practices, whether it's maintaining the streets, the stockpiles, your storage yards, your own equipment and the like. Yes?
Question. You just mentioned about maintaining the streets. So give me a sense of what kind of activities that could be categorized in terms of maintaining the streets.
Sure. So from this perspective, maintain streets really gets to street sweeping. And I've actually got a slide and a couple that I think I've got some stats on what you've actually been doing. So that's a good question. Because the last two don't apply to you. Industrial stormwater sources is only for cities that are, as of 2010, are larger than 100,000, and you don't fall into that category, so you don't have to do that. And then the last one is an optional approach that's really just from a paperwork standpoint, and Duncanville, like every other city, has chosen not to opt into additional permit requirements, which is a smart move. So to your question, so some specific successes. You've had several bulk waste cleanup events. There's 125 cubic yards of waste that has been collected and properly disposed of, and as opposed to that being dumped somewhere. 194 cubic yards street sweeping. So that's your question you were asking. What's the benefit there? 194 cubic yards. If there wasn't street sweeping, in the inlet cleanouts of 37 cubic yards, the next big storm that comes on, that's going to. There's been engineering reviews for as engineering designs for development come in, so a number of those. You've got ordinances for the ISWIM program for development and redevelopment. The key of all this is, why does it matter? The last line is, you don't discharge into any water body that has a water quality impairment. All the water bodies meet their intended use for water. The Metroplex cannot say that right now. So doing the activities you're doing above is keeping things cleaner for you. There are a lot more permit requirements if you are discharging into an impaired water body. So keeping it the way you've got it is what you want to do. And apologize, the rendering for some reason on the images is blocked a little bit of that, but simply what you need to keep doing, and staff is continuing to do, is document the activities. The activities are already happening, they're being done, training staff, conducting inspections and the like, having to actually do response and enforcement, making sure that contractors for the city are conducting their activities the way that city staff are being trained to conduct activities. So they are your partners in this, and making sure that municipal facilities. And that's really it. So right now you're in year 2 of this 5-year permit, and each year there'll be an annual report to TCEQ. That will, the end of this next permit year is at the end of the calendar year, and so next March, the next annual report will go to TCEQ. It's good to see you. That's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I just told you. So there's the continued implementation.
Any questions, comments?
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item on your work session agenda was to discuss a smoking ordinance. That's the public comment section of the previous council meeting, so put this on here I gave you a copy of the current smoking ordinance, and staff is seeking direction if there's any discussion that y'all want to have, and then basically I just need direction from you as to whether you want us to proceed with anything or not.
Well, I'm the one that asked for it. I would like for you all to proceed with it. I would like for us to be comparable to the other cities that are around the Metroplex, and hopefully remove any future businesses from the burden of, well, if you allow smoking, you've got to implement all of these things. So I would just rather go with a non-smoking ordinance. That way we can make a commitment to the health of our citizens, because there are dangers in secondhand smoking. It's been proven by that. So I think it's a win-win situation for our citizens.
I don't really know. We didn't do any research to find out for sure what our neighboring cities do. I know a lot of cities are moving towards a complete ban on smoking. It's not without controversy, but a lot of cities are moving in that direction. section, including parks. Our current ordinance does not address parks other than facilities. A lot of cities are moving towards that too. So, but we can find out and do a survey of the.
I think that's a good step to take, the next step, and then we can proceed.
Yeah, and that's what I meant to convey.
What, you want a survey of the other cities, what else would you like? Some sample ordinances? We can give staff direction to bring us some things to look at. I know there's one restaurant, we had the rotary installation banquet the other night in. You had to go through the bar area to get into the room. And I thought I was gonna die before I could get in there. It was so bad.
I think we should check the restaurants.
Oh, our business.
I think Papa Do's had some strong feelings about that.
If we were to work on drafting a revision of the ordinance, I would want to seek input from the various stakeholders as well.
Sure.
And look at that. And then what we can do is we can pull some research together and look at, give a survey of other cities. We can also, we'll give you a presentation and we can kind of hit some of the major discussion points. Some things that you may want to consider, or do you want to, grandfathering or not, or a phase-in period, are bars included, are parks included, open spaces. So there's a lot of different aspects to those ordinances, and as we do some research and see what's in those different ordinances, we can put together some talking points, come back here at a briefing session and give you a more in-depth presentation, and then hopefully that will help then formulate a direction that you want to go.
Personally, I think that's the way to go.
Reading our present ordinance, there's a lot of definitions of prohibited items and prohibited chemicals. Tobacco just being one of them. I know the science out there is always coming up with new synthetic this and synthetic that.
Well, I would say probably not, because it doesn't even address e-cigarettes, and that's another thing that's on right now that a lot of cities are dealing with, is prohibiting or not prohibiting those.
I'll just throw it out on the table. We might want to look at updating that ordinance, or that part of the ordinance as well, to pick up all these new inventions that are out there.
Yeah, I agree, we want to be comprehensive.
But maybe we shouldn't have the draft in the ordinance until we discuss.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have a draft of an ordinance. I would just talk about the major points of what would be in the ordinance to get direction from you before we start drafting it.
Okay, any further comment on that? Thank you. George?
Yes, what I did, Mayor, is I took their estimate of 15,000, and they had some fall activities that they had estimated that I added to that 15,000. I came up with a 16,527 total visitors, which would have a $826,350 economic impact to the community. And at our 2% tax rate, that would equate back to the $16,527, which would give them a 62% of their request.
These new numbers don't have any effect on the other application for the field. I mean, I agree. I just.
Can I ask a question? Did you come up with this? The scoring? The matrix?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's pretty good. You've been thinking about this a lot?
for several weeks.
I want to go down to TML and get you a little booth and sell tickets.
Is she just moonlighting or something?
It's $19.95.
That's right. For 3 low payments of $29.95.
That's not all.
Okay. Okay, well, this appears that we've gotten through this session, so I will adjourn our briefing session.
Number of openings on those. And the boards and commissions are very important, and we have a variety of them, from planning and zoning, parks and recreation, senior advisory board, to a number of other ones. And those boards and commissions serve a very useful role in helping the city council in policy facilitation. We have 14 openings on our boards and commissions that will be coming up this year, and we have so far 11 applications for those. So I would encourage you to apply for boards if you're not on one, or your friends. We have applications are in the back. They are also on our website. The application deadline is this Friday, July 24th, and then the City Council will interview applicants in early August and make appointments on the August 15th council meeting agenda. If you have any questions about any of the boards or commissions, please feel free to call our office. Call the City Secretary, Mary Jones, and she'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Item number 8P is a proclamation for the Parks and Recreation. And I've asked Mayor Pro Tem Patrick Harvey if he will read that, since there's no way I could read it. So, can we have our city folks come down?
Proclamation. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Duncanville, Texas, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region, and whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens, and whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased grass. Parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Duncanville, Texas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore, David L. Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of July as Parks and Recreation Month, and call upon all citizens of Duncanville to observe the month of July as Park and Recreation Month. This is yours.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Council for this recognition. There's probably not a better month of the year to recognize Parks and Recreation than July. By far the busiest month that we have. It starts off with our July 4th celebration. Both the field house as well as the recreation center host very large and very successful day camp programs We have over 250 kids at the field house every day. There's 40 to 50 kids at the recreation center, plus all of the other walk-ins and fitness gurus. And quite frankly, we'd have more people up here tonight, but they're tired. You can see Timothy is our only representative from our Parks Department. That's because they're tired. It's hot. Those guys get off at 2:30, and they do a lot of hard work during the day, and they're home resting. So, but I do thank them for all their efforts. Our folks work hard. They make Duncanville a beautiful place to live and a wonderful place for our citizens and, most importantly, our youth to grow up. So thank you all for what y'all do. Oh, introduce? Go ahead. Start this in.
I'm Timothy Hamilton, Parks Superintendent.
Patricia Bryce, Duncanville Fieldhouse. Moya Danter, I'm the Fieldhouse Specialist.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is our citizens input section. Now, tonight we've had several cards turned in. I think 3 of them are just for general discussion about a subject that the person wanted to discuss. And then we have items 13, 14, and 15, which are particular, speaking on a particular subject or a particular item. So I'm going to ask you right now, for those of you who signed up to speak on a particular subject, or would you rather speak when that agenda item comes up before the council? If anybody wants to speak now, fine. I've got 3 cards that look like they're general. One is Dave Galbraith, one is Mark Cook, and the other one is K-Cam. So if you want to speak now, please, Dave Galbraith would be the first one.
Some of you council members have highlighted Duncanville businesses for exceptional products and services, and tonight I want to recognize Main Street Bicycle Shop. Owners Tim and Sheree Harper. Their bike shop is located at 514 North Main Street. The A-frame structure with lots of glass used to be a key shop. I encourage everyone to go and visit Tim and Sheree and get to know them. You will find that they know bikes and are eager to help their guests learn which bike is right for them. You will find they right for each rider that wants to be sure their cost investment give them the health and enjoyment benefits they desire. Tim is a professional cyclist with the experience of many long competitive rides. Last year, when Bart Stevenson presented the conceptual City of Duncanville proposed local bike plan, I enthusiastically spoke in support of the new citywide bike hike plan. To show my support, I vowed that I would purchase a bicycle from a Duncanville business. I didn't say I wouldn't shop around, but after checking the big box stores, products and service, I found that I wouldn't get the personal attention I needed in bike selection and ongoing warranty and maintenance service. After three hour-long visits with Mike and Sheree, I finally understood which bike I needed and why it was the best for me. I also came to appreciate the bicycle shop. Rode the Hill City Bike Trail round trip twice, 2 days apart, and then last Saturday, braved the 12-mile inaugural Duncanville Unity Bike Ride, organized by former Councilman Mark Cooks. I must confess that my ancient legs and heart could only conquer about 6 miles of the trail. The heat had something to do with that, but maybe next year I'll complete the full 12-mile trail.
Thank you, sir. Mark Cooks.
Good evening, Mark Cooks, 1106 Bradley Drive, Duncanville, Texas. Very proud to be here today to recognize and to thank Mayor Pro Tem Patrick Harvey and Steve Rutherford and the rest of your council for considering the bike lanes for Duncanville. I want to tell you, I was more excited to come here on Saturday morning at 6:15 waiting for the riders, only expecting about 10 or 15, only to have about 25 to 30 riders to go the 12-mile calendar. We had the youngest riders was 78, which was Dave Gabbard. Dave, thank you very much for riding. We also petitioned that the Daniel Road now according to the bikers, need a new name. It may be called Devil's Hill because we had a very rough time getting up that Daniel Road. We also had a runner, someone who ran the complete 12 miles of the square miles. You know, no, it was not me. I wouldn't have did that. But Casey, thank Casey for running 12 miles of the run. So great job for him. We got a chance to meet business owners that we never met. We got a chance that we didn't get a chance to meet. And so most of the questions was, will we ever do it again? And it's going to be yes, because we really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, City Council, for considering and looking towards Councilman Dennis and Councilman Thomas to be on the next bike ride. And Dr. Dotson, we're not leaving you and Councilwoman Jamison out. We'd love to have you on the next bike ride where we'll all enjoy riding together through Duncanville. Beautiful sight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kate Cam.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council and Mr. Hugman. I had no idea I was going to do this until about 6:45. I'm here because I live in Duncanville at 1207 Rock Springs. I'm also here in my professional capacity as the area grassroots manager for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Just spoke with Mr. Harvey, and thank you for bringing up the issue of a smoking ordinance. This is something that I do, honestly, on a day in and day out basis. Mr. Hugman will remember me from Wichita Falls last year when we went through this. I was in Sherman last night on this very topic. Very public health issue when you talk about indoor exposure to secondhand smoke for workers. I would be happy to work with staff and be happy to visit with any of you on the council to talk about ordinances and what we have learned, what we believe needs to be in an ordinance, what works in cities, anything like that. And I'll try to follow up with an email so that everyone will have my contact information. But thank you so much, Councilman Harvey, for bringing it up. And we would certainly look forward from an organizational standpoint working with you. We are one of the founding partners of the Smoke-Free Texas Coalition. We work very closely with our partner organizations, which include American Heart, American Lung, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and the Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights. So we'll look forward to talking with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yours comes up unless you want to come up and speak now. Okay, thank you very much. We will get into our consent items now, and I'm going to ask the City Secretary if she'll read the captions on those.
Item 10C, consider the minutes for the July 7, 2015 regular City Council meeting. 11C, consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, awarding the Keep Duncanville Beautiful August 2015 Property of the Month to the Inwood National Bank located at 219 East Camp Wisdom Road and providing an effective date. 12 city terms and conditions of a professional engineering services agreement for design services for the North Main Street Pump Station and SCADA improvements with Del Tech Engineering, authorizing the city manager to execute all paperwork and necessary documents and providing an effective date.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Oh, this is consent. Please vote. Okay, thank you very much. Individual items to be considered. The first one is item number 13. I'm going to ask the city manager if he'll read the captions on these tonight.
Item 13C is to consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, authorizing the procurement and installation of a light-emitting diode or LED sign at Wheatland Road and Main Street location with Identity Management Consultants, LLC, through a local government purchasing cooperative purchasing agreement by board in the expenditure amount of $64,369.22, authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents and providing an effective date.
A short presentation on the LED sign. With us tonight is Kirk Stateson. He's with the Identity Management Consultants, the firm which we'll be using to install the LED sign. So if you have any specific questions or technical questions of the sign, Kirk will help us out with that. Why purchase an LED sign? Quite frankly, it was part of the FY15 Council's work plan to engage our citizens, meetings, events, programs, and emergency situations. And quite frankly, you can never have too many ways to inform your citizens. And I think that's highlighted by this past Saturday night where we had a concert in the park. And despite our best efforts through the Champion, through the website, through Facebook, to inform our citizens, I heard numerous comments that folks didn't know about it. So the more ways we can get the information out about what's going on in our city, the better. We do have a budget of $75,000 for this project. The purchase price came in about $10,000 under that number. It does include a full installation of the project. It's a turnkey project. The remaining funds, or a portion of the remaining funds, will be used to landscape the project by our city staff, and it's being purchased through buy board. Some of the highlights of the LED sign is that the sign itself is about 6 foot by 11 foot. Once you add the masonry on either side as well as the height, the feature it has, in my mind, is the auto dimming feature based upon the ambient light. And I talked a little bit about that in your backup, but basically it works much like your cell phone. If you're out in the sun, you need to have it on that full brightness and to be able to see it. However, if you look at your phone in the movie theater, which I'd never recommend you to do, you can put it on the low setting because you can see it in the dark. You don't need that full brightness when you're in the dark setting. So that's a good analogy of the way this sign operates. This will be the location of the sign there at the corner of Main Street and Wheatland, and the old sign will be going away, and that will be done by city staff. There you can see we'll have a 165-degree viewing angle from the site. We'll be sitting about 45 feet back from the corner. This is the LED sign pictorial that was in your packets. And it was based upon the sign, actually that's at James Collins and Mass Media P. You want to see some alternative design options. So we went back to the consultant and they came up with a stone feature at no additional cost. So that's kind of what we're looking at doing now, if that's what you agree to do. We did ask them to try to draw in some landscaping, and I'll fully admit that that may not be the best pictorial representation of what it will look like ultimately, because I know our staff will do a fantastic job of making sure it looks good. And the staff recommendation is for approval to purchase the sign, and then from you tonight, I really just need your direction as whether you want the brick, masonry, or the stone.
Thank you very much. Now, we do have one.
Gerald Hill, 1223 Lady Lane. Mayor, council, I've been to a lot of these sessions. This is the first time I've been smoked out enough to get up here and come up and speak. But it's because of the LED sign. I think you should really be careful whenever you're at this point with an LED sign, and that you buy the highest resolution sign you can get. All you have to do is look at the chamber sign and see what happens when you have a low resolution sign and you have way too much information on that sign. So you got to be kind of careful. If you look like at the Methodist Church, that's very legible on there. And there's some of the others. There's some of us that were on the signboard with the first one. And we've been all the way through, and we're kind of concerned that the sign control board's never been involved in this. The amount of information and where the height of the information, if you look and look up a little bit higher and pick up the information a little sooner. You have to be really careful on Main Street because of all those utilities right up next to the pavement. And it's very important that the information, when it's displayed, is that it comes up very quickly on the sign, stays there for 10 or 12 seconds is what we determined was a good sign, and it goes away. No animation in between. So maybe that went on that side. But I think we'd like to be involved in it a little bit more because some of us have spent some time on what we think would be helpful for us. And I think I'm glad to see it. Thank you.
Okay, this is an ordinance. The chair would entertain a motion, and then we can have council comments or ask Bart questions or whatever. So is there a motion concerning this item?
I'll move to approve the sign with the Austin Stone border.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Now, comment from the council or questions?
In favor of the sign. However, Mr. Hill gave me a thought that I hadn't really considered, and that is that they weren't really involved in the sign process, and I would certainly hate to feel like they were slighted in this process. I am definitely for the sign, and I would like to apologize to Mr. Hill and the Sign Control Board that they were not involved with this. So, sorry.
If I could address Councilmember Harvey, we are working right now on the guidelines for the sign, which would include sign, since they've done a lot of research on that already. So we will do that.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, but that the sign's not in operation, so you would have plenty of time to figure out just how it is to be utilized if we pass the okay on the sign tonight. Councilwoman Thomas?
I speak in opposition to the sign. I stated at the last council meeting that I think that the money spent at the on this sign would be better spent developing mobile apps. We're going to have a newsletter that's going to be mailed out to the citizens. We have a website. We have inserts in the water bill. I think at this corner, many citizens don't travel this corner every day or every week, and we should want to get out more information in a more costly way. And the second reason why I stand opposed to this is because of the light issue. I like the park because of its natural beauty. We have the flower gardens, the rolling hills and the trees, and I think this light would detract from the beauty of the park.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Jameson?
I too will be voting against the same way. That corner is a beautiful corner. A lot of people look at it for the change in the season, the foliage, and you know, I think there could be a different location, but it's awfully congested right there. I think Mr. spoke of the lights and the activity somewhere else, but not that corner. And that sign in LED sign there. So I just wish that we could pick another location and maybe somewhere that's traveled more often, and leave our beautiful corner with how well the Parks Department makes it so lovely for each season.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, will you please vote? Okay, 5-2. Thank you. Next item would be
14 is to consider a resolution appointing the City of Duncanville representative to the Eon Reality Entrepreneurs School Advisory Committee for a 2-year term to serve at the will of the City Council.
Okay, council, you were asked to submit names of people who you would like to see serve on that board, and I'm going to ask the city secretary at this time what names have been submitted.
There have been 2 names submitted for Donovan Jones.
Did you not give me a letter from a third one while ago?
The one you have in front of you was Patricia Ebert. She had submitted her own. No, the city council did not recommend her. She filled out a board and commission application.
Oh, okay.
For that specific
For
board.
that specific deal, and that, that's not one of our normal boards or commissions?
No, sir.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right, there are 2 names that have been nominated. Are there others that the council would like to put into the mix at this time? Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to close the nominations. We have 2.
Move to close.
All right, it's a motion and a second to close the nominations, so please vote. Okay, there are 2 names, councilman people who have nominated somebody. Would you like to speak for the candidate that you nominated? Okay, go ahead. Well, before we vote.
Mayor, thank you. I support Cliff Boyd. I think Cliff has the knowledge of working with local government, both as mayor and councilman. He has extremely deep roots with Parkland and also with Methodists and the decision makers and the movers and shakers in this area. And I think that there's probably no one in this community more able to do that than Cliff Boyd. I think it's one thing to get students into the school, but we want them to be successful, even above and beyond their wildest dreams. And so I think in order to do that, we need to move forward in terms of getting them entrenched into this marketplace. I think if we do that, this entrepreneurial school will be all that both Eon and we envision it to be. Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody, okay.
Without knowledge of anyone else their names having been nominated. Dr. Jones is the STEM director, Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics at Mount View College. He's also the dean of the Math, Music, and Science department at Mount View. He understands EON. He brought EON to Duncanville. He understands the technology, he understands the capability, he has the vision, and when I asked him if he was interested in being on the board, he enthusiastically agreed to be on the board. He also understands the city government, having served on the council for 2 years. So I'm glad that we have Dr. Jones, who lives in our community, who has this understanding and also has the servant's heart to serve on the board.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other council members that want to speak? If not, I have 2 cards. One of them is Wesley Jamison. Wesley.
Wesley Jameson, 1214 Lady Lane. When I try to decide between two potential candidates that have qualifications that appear to be equal, I tend to draw out an outline that shows the pros and cons of each side. Dr. Jones, who I'm speaking in support of, secured the initial grant that brought the EON technology to the Dallas County Community College District, of which I serve as a trustee. That was several years ago, and he's been intimately involved with the principals of EON through the course of that $1 million grant with the Mountain View College folks. And as Councilwoman Thomas said, also being the Dean of the Engineering Department and chair of many of the STEM functions over there. He's directly involved in the science of the project. He was there at the beginning of the conversation of the intellectual product that EON can produce. Whereas we're also considering candidate B. He has experience, owns several buildings, flew to California with a contingency of the council, including the interim city manager at the time, spending thousands of taxpayer dollars to, I guess, take a look at it. I'm not real sure what the function of that was. You've got a marketing promoter, not a scientist. He supported a more risky relationship with EON than the one that's currently on the table. It's risky and alignments. And as Dr. Carlson said, put aside selfish ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Ebert.
Patricia Ebert, 115 South Greenstone. To appoint one Jones, Dr. Stephen Jones, in his current Mountain View chair, is familiar with academic environments. He champions student success while staying within a budget that's partially funded by us taxpayers. Working with our Duncanville youth and their advisors, Dr. Jones has the contacts and the business acumen to steer EON reality into being self-sustaining instead of being on the tax rolls that we have as taxpayers potentially to support it.
Thank you. Those were the two inputs that the cards that I had from the citizens. So, council, seeing no one else who wants to speak, there are two names that have been nominated. One is Cliff Boyd. The other one is Dr. Jones. So they're both knowledgeable about what happens with EON. So at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to do like we did with Mayor Pro Tem. The first name that will be placed before you will be Dr. Stephen Jones. If this is your candidate, okay, we record two. All right. The second candidate is Cliff Boyd. So if this is your candidate, will you please cast your vote at this time? Okay, it looks like Cliff Boyd will be the appointee to the board. Thank you very much. 15.
Item number 15 is to consider approving award of hotel occupancy tax grants to various applicants and authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary agreements. Finance Director Richard Summerlin will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I wanted to do was to talk to you just briefly, evaluate all the applicants for hotel occupancy tax. First of all, the matrix, the scoring system that I designed, I wanted it to evaluate the applicants in a consistent, fair, and objective manner. I came up with a 100-point scale, and I decided arbitrarily that 50 points recommend approval of the grant. And the way that we did that is we took the economic impact of which is 7% of the average hotel room in the city of Duncanville. That comes to $6.14. So if people gave us information about how many nights their guests stayed, we would be able to calculate that economic impact for the hotel occupancy tax. We also made an assumption that for visitors that's and other types of things that they might buy while they're here in the city of Duncanville. So that took care of the first or second bullet to incorporate that economic impact. We also wanted to evaluate the traffic that it generated, because how many people come to the events, I believe, speaks to how well those events speak to the quality of life of the city of Duncanville. Then we also wanted to get their budget information, a schedule of their events, and some financial and statistical information to support their reported traffic and attendance. And so then we wanted to briefly go over what funds are available. Our projected fund balance based on our budget for 2016 at the moment stands for us to end the year with fiscal year 16 with $261,010. Included in that projection, this is one thing I hadn't mentioned before, but the hotel occupancy tax law is one of the most convoluted laws I think I've ever read in my entire life. It was developed by special interest groups that had very specific needs in mind when they wrote it, and so I'll leave it at that. So, getting up here to the scoring matrix, the very first one was from the International Museum of Cultures to establish a visitor center. They have been, so that's no longer on the table. The next applicant was the Duncanville Chamber of Commerce, and they were asking for $82,000. That's very difficult to read from down here. I apologize, it's not a little bit larger and clearer. $82,093, and that is for landscaping, facade, and other improvements in the matrix. They scored 50 out of a possible 100. Then the next one was Duncanville Lions Club. They asked for $35,000 for the Sandra Meadows basketball tournament. That scored a 60 out of a possible 100 points. Then the next item was the International Museum of Cultures. They had asked for a $26,539 grant that was due to the International Museum of Culture. And originally, I had scored them much lower. Tonight, or rather earlier today, they brought some information. Tonight, I plugged that additional information in, and that would yield them a score of 70 out of 100 points. The Duncanville Community Theater had a request for $26,000 for general operations, and they scored 55 points out of 100. Great American Sports, this is Mike Kunstadt's group that puts on 2 basketball tournaments in April and March, and then they also do the Gasso tournament, scored out of 100 points. Then Perry Productions, in conjunction with the International Museum of Cultures, asked for $1,600 to purchase some DVDs to start an educational library of films at the museum, and that scored 25 points out of a possible 100. So the result, now the council's prerogative to accept or to amend those recommendations.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question. I just wanted to repeat what I had said back in the briefing. Want to thank Richard and the staff for the metrics. I'm glad to be able to make recommendations based on so I know Councilmember Thomas recommended that you sell this methodology to other cities, but I'll be calling you tomorrow from Seagoville. We could use it.
Okay, Councilwoman Jameson.
I would like to hear from you on what your thoughts are on these amounts versus your grading system. Do you think that the full amounts that were requested should be granted, or perhaps a lesser amount on the scale, now has the lower score.
Well, my thoughts simply were to come up with a scale that there had to be a minimum number of points in order for me to recommend approval of it. And of course, I believe that it's the council's business to decide if you want to amend those amounts. My matrix was just simply some way for me to objectively look at what was being requested versus the economic impact.
Okay, so what I'm asking you now is, because of the economic impact in how you've rated these, do you think that the full amount should be granted economically? Does that make sense, that the highest amount goes to the lowest score?
Well, I believe that that's the council's prerogative. I think that,
You don't say.
my system is.
If I could add to it, Councilmember Jameson, the scoring criteria did take into account the amount requested, because it is inherently factored in already, in the economic impact part of that is a factor of how much is being requested versus the economic impact. So that already gives you the criteria that were requested. But it is the council's prerogative to decide if you want to change or take a different scoring or change those amounts.
So when we, from the things that they're saying that they're going to do, or are you just giving them?
Well, I have to answer that pluralistically, because, for instance, the grants that have been given in the past, people didn't necessarily buy things. They used it for the operation, for instance, the museum, for instance, the operation of the community theater. And so all I get from them is we pay that out quarterly. And so from them, they submit to me a quarterly report that tells me what the activity is, like at the community theater, how many shows did you produce during the quarter, what was your attendance, and how that impacted your budget. And so that's a little bit different for those. But for like the grant that we give to the Chamber of Commerce for the Visitor Center, they actually do turn in invoices.
I don't think they've ever requested that much before, $82,000. And it's landscaping, facade, and other improvements. So you just give them the money?
No, the way that I did the one last year is they gave me receipts. Well, actually, it was done twofold. The first round, they actually had performed work and gave me receipts for work done. The second go-round, they gave me their contractor's estimate, and we went ahead and paid them based on that estimate. It was basically an invoice for work that had not yet been done.
Okay, so going forward, is it going to be based on getting receipts or estimates?
Right. Yeah,
Receipts.
we definitely want to see how the money was expended, and there be some proper backup for each one of those expenditures, no matter what the source is.
Okay, that's good.
Councilwoman Jameson, what I intend to do is, I think we've got representatives from the various organizations, and I'll invite them to come up. This is not the presentation like we've done in the past. They'll have an opportunity to do that when we adopt the final, go ahead, whatever we tell him to do, and work that into the budget. And then I also have one card from Dr. Dion Dubois. When I call on you, you'll know. Okay, so are there other council questions? Please, Councilman Swartz.
You kind of touched on it, but I would like the city manager to kind of explain what we're doing different this year than what we've done in the past